Peace Queen. It's Melissa Crawford of thequeencode.com, and the message today is part 7 in the series entitled Revelations, Unveiling the Great Mystery of the Divine Feminine. So we're back on track here. I took 3 weeks off. As many of you know, my husband and I welcomed the birth of our beautiful daughter, Princess Candace Adeline Crawford. And if you've been on Facebook, you've seen the pictures of her. She's so adorable. And people say she looks like me. But parenthood is really the best thing that's happened to us. And motherhood at this level is just, it's amazing. And as a matter of fact, right now, Princess Candace is sleeping downstairs and Daddy is watching her while I'm doing this video. And so we'll talk more about that later. But in part 7, I actually want to pick up where we left off in this series of really uncovering and rediscovering not only what it means to be a woman, but what it means to be divinely feminine. So in part 7, I want to take you back, and that's really the thing that's been different about this series in comparison to a lot of the other ones that I've done, because you know the Queen Code is all about feminine power, but in this series I'm really taking you back in time, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, you know, sometimes 25,000 years, to really excavate and dig deeper and understand not our history but our herstory. Because in order for us to truly show up powerfully in the present moment, we have to remember who we were. We have to remember those divine elements that really truly make us powerful in our own right. And so much of that power we've lost along the way, and it's now time to remember and reclaim that. So that's what this series is about: unveiling, lifting the veil, shaking the dust off of something that's been buried for so long. Okay, so here it is, part 7. And in part 7, I want to speak about women in our natural state as peacekeepers. Peacekeepers. And that's deep, right? Because when we look at society today, many times it's the exact opposite. You know, many times there's so much chaos in our homes and chaos in our children because there's so much chaos within. And so it's really interesting, because when you look back at some of the most peaceful, prosperous civilizations in ancient times, there were civilizations that were either headed by women or civilizations that had women in very high positions. Because naturally, in our natural divine element as women, we are the peacekeepers. We are the lawgivers. We are the ones that are really about truth and justice. That's our natural element. You know, when you look back historically at women from ancient civilizations, we always brought order out of chaos. And that's really important. We always brought order out of chaos. We always had a way of naturally just making things right and setting things straight. Even when you look at, for example, one of the greatest ancient civilizations of Egypt, there was a time before, you know, foreign invaders came in and, you know, things, you know, started getting mixed up. There was a time with the ancient Egyptians where they had no policing system. They policed themselves by what was called and what still is called the 42 laws of Ma'at. And Ma'at has always been personified as a woman. And what's Ma'at? Truth, peace, justice, order, balance. That's naturally who we are whenever we are very much in touch and attuned to our own truth. And so again, women as the original peacekeepers, as the original lawgivers, as the ones who upheld truth and justice. It seems so different now, right? When you turn on the television and you see how, you know, there are cat fights in the reality shows, and you know, for a lot of us, our experience with other women has always been about drama. And so there are a lot of women that I speak to that say, you know, I don't care for feminine relationships because women bring too much drama. And again, we're unveiling some things like, how crazy is that when we used to be the original peacekeepers? And so what we have now are angry women that have a lot of resentment, hurt, and pain buried deep down inside. And it happens to the best of us. The best of us, we go through it. I even go through it sometimes. There's been a lot that I've freed myself of. There's been a lot of baggage that I've released. But I see in my life where there's even more baggage that I need to release, right? But because of the baggage and the resentment and the pain and the anger, we're not at peace within ourselves. We're chaotic within. And that chaos within shows up in our children, shows up in our households, with our significant others and our families, shows up in our community, shows up in our world. And sometimes, when you've been chaotic for so long, or when you've been so much of a fighter, one of my favorite queen types is the warrior queen. I too am a warrior queen. But as a warrior queen, I had to learn that it wasn't about necessarily fighting someone else. The truth is, we wrestle not with flesh and blood. As a warrior queen, I realized that the real weapons that I should carry is that of truth and love. As a warrior queen, I realized that it wasn't about fighting someone else, but it was about standing up for something that I believed in. It was about taking a stand and being on the front lines, but also going forth in truth and love, not in hurt, not in resentment. And that can be so hard when there are things that you've dealt with in life that you feel like, someone else should tell you sorry for, someone else should pay for, or, you just can't seem to let it go. But when you think to yourself what it's cost you, I know for me, years ago, I began to look at my life and realize how much it was costing me to hang on to the resentment. And I began to let it go. And like I said, it's a journey. There's still some things that I'm working towards letting go, but this freedom that I have on this level, it's just amazing. The blessings that I've been able to receive on this level have been amazing. And that gives me encouragement to keep going. And so taking it back to the role that we have as women, as original peacekeepers, when you begin to understand the power that you have in that role, when you begin to understand that you have the authority and the power to not only set things straight within yourself, but also set things straight within your children, within your home, within your household, within your community, within the world. It's interesting because there's so much chaos in the world. But how do you expect peace to come on this planet if the original peacekeeper is not at peace? Women all over the globe are dealing with battling chaos, resentment, regret, all of this inner clutter. So how can we expect things to be right when the original peacekeeper is out of order? And at the same time, how can we continue on with the chaos in our homes, the chaos in our communities, the chaos in the world, when the original peacekeeper is in order? So what am I saying, Queen? Like I said, I'm a warrior queen. And being a woman of peace is not about being passive. Being a woman of peace is not about letting people do things to you. It's understanding that the most powerful thing in the universe is love and truth, and operating in that way. Being a peacekeeper, knowing that, we have the power to transcend anything. And the fighting and the chaos and the resentment and the inner battle can always stop whenever we want it to. Is it easy to walk that path of healing? No, it's not. But is it worth it? Yes, it is. And Queen, you have that strength inside of you to start that process today. So how do you start? It's what I always say, basically, and I'll say it again because I can't say it enough. The path to inner peace starts with you forgiving yourself, with you realizing that in some situations, it may not be that you're upset with someone else. It may be that you're really upset with yourself. And so being the original peacekeeper, let's use the healing solution of self-forgiveness to get ourselves back in order. Now, that's one of the reasons why I address you when I start these videos and when I, do everything, peace queen. because I'm calling you back to your natural element. I'm calling myself back to my natural element. Peace Queen. I'm reminding myself who I really am. I'm reminding myself of my own power. I'm reminding you of your power. Peace Queen. So just really think about that and begin to really hone in on the things that you know you haven't forgiven yourself for. And begin that process of self-forgiveness. And if you want to go deeper into that process, I actually teach that in my Feminine Manifestation course. If you go on my website at thequeencode.com and you go to the Queen store, you can actually download Feminine Manifestation, and I teach that beautiful, deep process of self-forgiveness even more so. But you can start right now with just saying, I forgive myself. And every time something comes up that's chaotic, I forgive myself. I forgive myself. Okay? So we have to let it go. We are the original peacekeepers. And it's time that we come back to the forefront, because we are queens born for such a time as this. Okay? That's my message for you today. Again, if you want to go deeper into that process, go to www.thequeencode.com. Go to the Queen store and get Feminine Manifestation. And I'll be back to you next week with part 8 of the Revelation series. Stay tuned.